Hello, people. Andrew here, talking about comics from a reader, collector, speculator, investor point of view, in that order of importance to myself. And today I'm looking at a series called Loveless that was written by Brian Azzarello and illustrated by three different artists: Marcello Frusin, Danijel Zezelj, and Werther Dell'Edara. It was a Vertigo imprint book that ran from 2005 to 2008 for 24 issues. I read somewhere, and I think it applied to Loveless, that it was supposed to be a longer series, but it was capped probably because of sales at 24 issues. Mind you, the Blanc that you read is a fairly solid storyline. It does come to a conclusion. I can see where there'd be room for more, but it's a satisfying read in itself, just even for the 24 issues that it is. A note about the okay. So I first found out about this because of the team up of Brian Azzarello and Marcello Frusin. I saw their work initially in Hellblazer, and I was really impressed with what I read and saw. I thought it worked really well together, and I really enjoyed that series. So when I discovered that they were releasing or working together on this series called Loveless, and it was a western, and I do like a western from time to time, I thought, yeah, okay, sign me up. I'll pick up a copy and I'll start reading it and see if I liked it. Well, yes, I did like it, and now eventually I do have the whole 24s in the series. So about the artist itself, the three artists, Marcello Frusin. Okay, Marcello Frusin provides all of the covers, which is really great, and I'll show you all the covers. His artwork style, I really like his style. He uses shadow and tone. His shadows define tone, atmosphere, emotion. He can be specific and detailed when necessary, but a lot of the times he lets the shadows convey all of those other things that are useful, like as I say, emotion, tone, atmosphere. It's all in his work with shadows. I really appreciate his stuff, and I like one of the things that he did in the stories when it comes to telling things of the past, because a lot of the times you would go into a different tone, a different color for illustrating the past, either black and white or sepia, burnt sienna, and this would say, oh, this is happening in the past. But one of the things that Marcello Frusin did was that he overlapped. He had a scene where something was happening now, and wherever they were walking in that particular scene, there would be an overlap of an image from the past to indicate what was happening, but it was happening in the same place, just at a different time. Here's an example of that, and also of the artwork. This is from issue number one. So you can see in the sort of the bluer tone, that's what's happening right now. And in the more colorful tone, that's what's happening in the past. It's happening on the same spot. It's just different things are happening. And I like that way of telling points of history as to what's happened before and where it's happened before. It was an interesting technique. I really like Marcello Frusin's artwork. That alone would elevate any of these books that I'm reading because of his style. But there were two other artists. There was Danijel Zezelj, Croatian artist. He uses shadow too, but he uses it even more so than Marcello Frusin. An example here from issue 6. Whoop. Okay. So his shadow work, I find that it often it creates the image. It's a little bit of use of negative space in a sense, where rather, I mean, you can see that there's outlines and there's line drawings, but it's more so the shadows that give things their form, their emotion, and what have you. And I like his backgrounds for trees and things like that as well. Very kind of loose interpretation of these things, a very shadow type, and I really like his artwork style as well. The third artist actually may be well known now, even more well known now, because he is the co-creator and the illustrator, at least for Something Is Killing the Children, and that's Werther Dell'Edara. I didn't know about this guy until I read Loveless, and I haven't read Something Is Killing the Children yet. And although that's on the thing to read, his work is more more line work, more sparse line work, but it's line work. Uh, so he uses a great deal of lines and not as much shadowing and shading, but he does have some of it. But it's more so about his line work involved. I think he's a good artist. I would just out of the three, I would put him third. I really like Marcello Frusin, and then I'm going to go with Danijel Zezelj, and then Werther Dell'Edara. But they're all good artists, and with the Marcello Frusin covers throughout the entire thing, certainly elevates the series. I just really like the artwork on this. So what's the story about? Okay, so it's 2 years after the Civil War in America. So what is that, 1870? Something like that. And it's based on three particular characters. Wes Cutter, who fought for the South during the Civil War, has returned home to Blackwater after a 2 year absence from the war, seeing the changes that is happening in his hometown. It's also the story of Ruth Cutter, his wife, who went through her own trials and tribulations throughout the course of the Civil War and was abused and what have you. She's coming back somewhat, I think, for revenge. She wanted to be with her husband, Wes, but right at the outset, they're together. So Wes hasn't come back to find his wife. He's already found her by this point in time. So I'm not even sure exactly why Wes is coming back. I think he's partly about revenge, but I also think it's because he has nowhere else left to go. The third character is Atticus Mann. He was an escaped slave before the Civil War began, made his way to the North, and through a series of circumstances ended up fighting on the side of the North. And so he's come back, and at one point in time, somebody asked him, so you've come back home? And he's saying, well, no, I was born here, but this really isn't my home. So he's back for a little bit of revenge. So it really is very much a revenge story for our three main characters, although they don't announce that that's what they're there for. That's just their actions, and what they do leads me and leads somebody reading it to see that they're interested in revenge. It's a mean story. Most of the characters are mean, and it's a violent story. It's not going to work for everybody because of those things. I have one friend who really abhors violence, and he doesn't like to see violence, so he wouldn't be interested in this because there's violence in every book. And another friend of mine who likes heroes. He's not necessarily a comic book reader, but he likes heroes and the heroic agenda. And there's very few people here in this series that are good. They all have some sort of nastiness and meanness in them. Interesting enough, Ruth, who was so kind and gentle prior to the war, and we see some of that through some of the flashbacks or that double imagery, she's now become ruthless. She's very, and also a little bit. Things have changed her way of thinking in a nasty sort of spell. There's elements. Sometimes you can see the kindness of Ruth still come through in times past, and it shines through in what she's doing. But for the most part, she's just as nasty and bitter as everybody involved in Blackwater, and that goes for the supporting characters as well. You've got the rich landowner who's only interested in the profit. You've got the former soldiers of the North that are there to keep the peace, but they do so by putting their foot down on everybody in Blackwater and taking a run over the entire town. And you've got those that fought for the South that now hide out in the hills and take pot shots at people from the North. The war is over, but the war is still going on in Blackwater. Is the story a good story? Well, yeah, I really liked it. Despite all of the violence and the meanness of it, I thought it was a gripping tale. I was interested in all three characters and their storylines, and when I moved from here to there, that was fine because I'm interested to see what happens. It's not fast paced. It's got a nice solid pace where you can absorb things. There are some quiet moments and times for reflection. There's a number of that within it, where they're wondering, what have I become to a certain extent, and what am I going to do next? And and I really enjoyed the entire series, and I do recommend the series. And I'm going to go through some of these covers because I think some of these covers are great. This is issue number 1. As I say, they're all done by Marcello Frusin. And so as far as I say, so when it comes down to a reading, yeah, it's not going to appeal to everybody. There are some people who don't like westerns and people that don't like the violence and the meanness of this entire book. But you can't fault the artwork. I love the artwork in it, and I think the story is worth reading. As far as a collection is concerned, well, it fits into a couple of collections there. It would be in for, the Vertigo line, Brian Azzarello, Marcello Frusin, people who like westerns, some of the other artists as well, Danijel Zezelj, maybe even Werther Dell'Edara, because of Something is Killing the Children. I think people are more aware of his artwork. And of course the covers, and some of these covers as well depends on what you're collecting in a cover, because there are some skull covers as well. We'll get to those, and some people like to collect things because of the skull cover. Oh, and this is issue number 6, which first changes over to Danijel Zezelj's artwork. The 3 artists work throughout the entire series, doing a couple of blocks at a time. But it's not like just Marcello Frusin for the first 5 and then Danijel Zezelj. No, Marcello Frusin does 1 through 5, 9 through 10, all the covers. Zezelj comes back up a couple of times. So they're all different artists. Well, these 3 artists working on the books at different times. And once again, I do like all of the covers that you're going to see. So that's for the collecting. As far as speculation and investment, the answer is no. There's nothing here to spec or invest on. Even if they were to make this into a series, which it would be an interesting series. I mean, a lot of the artwork itself works well as a storyboard, which is a credit to all 3 of the artists. Is that you can easily follow what's going on in the story. You get a definite sense of time and place. The colorists, unfortunately, I don't have all the colorists written down. I really like how they colored this book because they use solid tones, very blue and very orange and brown and yellow type of thing. There are no big splashes of color. There's no real vibrancy. Things are done in, as I say, blues and grays, which is fitting. Yellows and browns, and it creates, when you get into the town of Blackwater and it's yellow and orange and stuff, you can feel the heat that's coming off the ground itself and the dust that's in the air. It adds to that. So, but as I say, as far as speculation or investment, we're not going to see any of that. What was it? That was issue number 11. So yes, so here's number 12 coming up. Because of Dell'Edara, yeah. That's no spec there. I'm just going to go through these covers because I really do think these covers are great, and I would buy it probably just for the covers. But as I said, I've read this series a number of times, and I've just finished reading it again so that I could do this to refresh my memory on some of the finer points. I'm not going to go into the whole details of the story, but was it this is not a skull cover, but I really do like this particular cover. I think that's really good. So yeah, I'm going to recommend Loveless. I'm going to recommend it because of the story, and I'm going to recommend it because of the art. There's one of the skull covers. As I said, not much else as far as collecting spec or investment. There's just some stuff there, but it's a shame that it didn't continue, but on the other hand, I'm happy enough with the story that I got, and it does come to a conclusion of sorts. Actually, the conclusion is, oddly enough, it happens in issue number 21, and then there are still 3 issues to come. And the 3 issues that follow are situated in a different time with different characters. Only the 3rd one, issue number 24, has any kind of real throwback to the first 21 issues of Loveless, because it's like a minor character. We get to see what his life looks like so many years later. Again, you got some of these skull covers and what have you, and I think they're really good. So this is the last issue of the whole Western run involving Wes and Ruth Cutter and Atticus Mann. So this is issue number 21, and it was nothing is complete by the time you get to the end. As I say, there's more story to be told, but there's enough story here in these 21 issues. There's enough of an ending that you're satisfied. Some people just really can't stand it when there's when something leaves certain characters not the end of their story hasn't been told. I'm perfectly fine with that. As long as this part of the story has been told, what happens next, well, that's up to your imagination, or if there was a sequel or something, that to be explored. But some people just, no, I want to find out exactly, how did they die so that I get to some sort of closure. And that doesn't happen in this series exactly for all of the characters, but that's okay. I'm good with that. This was issue number 22. This is more of the Defiant Ones type of story where you've got a black man and a white man that have been chained together. And these are almost like little, and they're escaped cons running from the law and how they work or don't work together. It was an interesting tale. And I guess it's because of the themes that were brought forward in Loveless, but it's got no direct tie to what's happening in Loveless. I was okay with this one. It was interesting. I'm not so. The ending again is kind of ambiguous, but I did like this. This was an interesting one as well, because it starts off with a shot of Bonnie and Clyde, and this is one. Bonnie and Clyde used to, when they committed their crimes, they often went into smaller rural areas and found sanctuary with people that the people that they came from, not necessarily their kin, although they did go back to their kin, but a lot of the people that were living at that time in somewhat poverty or in lower standards, that's where Bonnie and Clyde sort of fit in for a while. So this is a story of them on the run, and they run into somebody, and there's a tale to be told there. So I thought this was an interesting tale, and probably out of the three at the end, it was my favorite. And then we got the final issue, which, as I said, features a character that probably came from the Loveless itself, and this is what his life looks like so many years later. I felt that this one was really incomplete, and maybe it was to be the start of something, another year's worth of Loveless, but again, moving over to a different character from that particular series and following what's going on here, but that didn't materialize. So this was the final issue, and I just thought it was the weakest of these last three issues. Overall, I'm going to say, yeah. Recommend this book. As far as as I've already told you about the collecting spec, but you know what? All of this stuff is dollar book material. I mean, even this, I got the trade paperback, and I think that cost me what, $5 to buy the trade paperback, and I just bought the trade paperback because so many times I got to open up the bags and read the first 5 issues because I enjoy it so much. But now in the trade paperback, I just got to read that for the first 5 issues. Yeah. So it was, as I said, very inexpensive to pick up this series. A lot of talent behind it, and Brian Azzarello and the 3 artists, Marcello Frusin, Danijel Zezelj, and Werther Dell'Edara. Excellent cover. So yeah, it's worth the purchase. It's worth the read. I really enjoyed it. It's just not going to make you any kind of money in the future because it's all about the story and the artwork. And that's what I got to say about Loveless. So, be good to yourself and be good to others. We'll talk again soon.